Dark Knights of Steel, Allwinter, issue 1. So this is not a sequel, and I say that because actually on Twitter recently, Taylor was teasing that there's going to be an actual sequel. So this is more of a spin-off.
This is Unkillables, essentially.
Yes. Effectively, yeah. What's interesting, though, I don't think I realized, because Taylor is written here as a writer as well, because it's Jay Kristoff and Terso Cons who are on the main story. I didn't realize it was going to be a backup, and the backup's by Taylor, fleshing out another part of the world.
I think we were thinking it was going to be like co-written, like notes by Taylor, but it's fully just Taylor and Federici, the main artist, doing the backups. Like
Federici doing Aquaman shit. I am here for it.
Oh yeah, I missed that.
Yeah, I am here for that. So, yeah, this is a black and white book. Well, the main story is.
Can I just say, I'm so glad, in a way, that this was the first book I read, because I did not know this was black and white.
All
the other books had the previews. Yeah. I didn't know that. I just went into this blind, and I was like, oh, this is different. Yeah. I'm not expecting it. I think I got a little bit more enjoyment out of that, like the surprise factor.
To be fair, though, it does build up to one page with something color on it at the end, and that is a really cool final page. Because they talk a lot, there's a lot of little things throughout this issue of Deathstroke lamenting that the world, you know, the oceans used to be blue and the trees used to be green. And I didn't take him literally. I thought he was just saying, oh, the world's kind of shit now, and like, you know, climate's gotten worse and whatever. But then you get to the end, and the shock of the final page is that this character is in color, and he recognizes that he looks different from the rest of the world. And I'm like, okay, that's actually quite interesting. All right.
Yeah, I was saying, you know, they're just stuck in the land of never-ending winter, so everything's gray and drab, and you know.
I love that, like, just before that final reveal, the page before, like, it kind of tells you pretty explicitly that the world is in black and white, because it's, you know, the narration says, you know, gray cloth in his hands, black blood on his skin.
Yeah,
and you're kind of going, hang on a second.
But it's right before, though, so it's not like you've been thinking about it.
No, you haven't. Sure. Like, for the most part, you just think stylistic choice, right? That's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the issue, I actually really loved this, to be honest. I
kind of loved it, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really know Jay Kristoff from anything.
I would say he's typically a novelist. Does fantasy novels.
But, you know, I thought it flowed well. I thought the dialogue was easy to read, and I was super engaged with the characters. You know, the idea that the villain, who is Vandal Savage, they keep calling him like a slightly alternate Vandal, yeah. But he's hired Deathstroke to like kill a bunch of people, and we get this glorious 2-page spread of like, you know, on their horses in the snow and some fighting and whatnot. But basically, Deathstroke wants to be paid for his job. He goes back.
Classic Deathstroke.
Of course.
Give me my coin.
Yeah, he goes back with Vandal to, like, you know, his fortress or whatever. They're celebrating, and he tries to make small talk with them. There's this great 2-page layout where they're just having a drink and talking, and these panels at the top and bottom. But across the middle of this 2-page layout, there's just this like a smear of like blood. But again, it's in black and white, so it's a little hard to tell. But inside that smear is the actual, like, you know, Deathstroke killing people and whatnot. It's all very stylized and very pretty. Really loved it. There's something about black blood on a white background that just looks very effective, you know, in that style. But yeah, I mean, Vandal Savage starts talking about building his empire, and he's like, I just want paid. Give me my money, right? Because he's like, what do you see, Slade? I see someone who owes me money. I was like, that's actually pretty funny. And he's like, yes, but what if I said, blah, 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 you know, there's people to kill? And he's like, how much? That's what I'd say. How much? Pay me. So.
Well, I like that too. Right before that, he goes, well, you know, war never gives. It only takes. Speaking of, and he keeps bringing up the money, and then when he finally does bring up the money, that's where he pulls him back in.
Yeah.
You know?
So yeah, it's basically up until now, it's like, okay, this is a sense that Deathstroke's this gun for hire. Well, not literal gun, obviously, because it's the time period.
Though.
Right? And it's setting up that he's gone on a mission for Vandal Savage, who's sending Killer Frost as a sort of chaperone, because she works for him. And we get this journey in the Viking boat and all the rest of it, and traveling across the seas. They encounter a kraken just for a bit of fun on the way, which looked fantastic. So yeah, as much as I was praising the writer who I'd never heard of, I also would like to praise the artist that I've never heard of here.
Yeah, it's great, especially doing black and white work in in Western comics is bold, right? Well, no, let me rephrase it. In American direct market comics is bold.
Yeah.
It's not often done, and it usually doesn't go down all that well. And we've seen some examples of DC where it's not looked amazing. I think one of the Batman anthology books tried it for a while, and it was okay, but it really works here.
There's a different skill set to it, in the same way that lighting a movie for black and white versus color is a different skill set as well. It just looks good, and you got Deathstroke like jumping into the mouth of the Kraken, and them thinking he's gone, but then he like cuts his way out like 2 pages later.
That looks so metal. Him emerging from the dead Kraken with his axes. Oh my god!
And keep in mind, just for I mean, I know that Deathstroke usually has a bit of a beard, but he's got like a Viking beard and long hair here.
Well, and even his helmet too, which as it covers up his patch, right, is very Vikingized. With the downturned horns and whatnot.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Like, all this action scene is really great. It really sells, like, okay, why we're doing this setting. And it was so convincing, even at this point, I was like, okay, I went from being, what is this weird spin-off? Do I really want more Dark Knights of Steel to being, oh, I'm glad this is like 8 issues now. Like, I'm glad this isn't just like a quick one-shot or like a 3-issue thing. So they get to where they're going. Whatever. Again, they've all got like these.
This temple, yeah.
It's very. It reminds me a lot of like reading like Aaron Starr and stuff. All the names of the places. It's all Smart Halm and stuff like that.
Very, very Norse, yeah.
Dodshrev and Skyhelm.
It's real annoying because I can't find it now. But I remember when I was reading it, I was like, oh, they've followed on with the theme of the original book of naming someone or something after like notable fantasy stuff. The original had Hob Forest. There was something in this that I remember as I was reading it, I noticed, but now I cannot for the life of me find what it was to actually reference it. But there's definitely one in here.
Okay.
But yeah, so they get into this temple and they encounter some characters in hoods, right? And there's some surprises here, right? When they sort of spring their trap. One of them being that one of them is Slade's wife, or sorry, I should say ex-wife, as she points out.
As she likes to, because up to this point, he's been eulogizing her. Like, I miss my wife, Addie. What would I do to have you? And you're like, oh, okay, well, this is a world where she's dead. And, whatever he did as a Viking is, stayed with him. And you're like, oh, no, she's around. They're just not together anymore in typical Deathstroke fashion.
And as soon as like he realizes it's her, right, it's Adeline, he's like, okay, we're done now, right? We're not going to fight and continue the job. And Killer Frost starts yelling about it, and he's like, here's the coin that you paid me, take it back, and if he wants to hunt me for this, that's on him. But he's like, we're done. And basically it's like, okay, she wasn't the target though, there's someone else here that's the target. And I actually did notice during one of these pages the name Alec popped up, and I'm like, oh, and I was like Alec. The only one I can think of is Alec Holland. I can't think of any other Alex.
I'm looking all over. I'm like, where's another guy? Because clearly that man is too small to be Alec Holland. Right?
And then it's like, okay, so who is this? Why does he want him dead? What's going on? And yeah, like, final page, the white cloak comes off, and we've got this young blonde boy who is Alec Holland, but he is wearing green. And there's like another hint as well, something about connecting to the vines or the green or something, powers of the world. But it's like, okay, we have a child Swamp Thing. I mean, does he actually turn into Swamp Thing yet? I don't know, but
he definitely has the connection to the green, right?
Yeah.
So
and he's bringing back life to this colorless world, presumably.
Yep.
Yeah, he's going to revitalize it, and that's something that Vandal Savage does not want. Vandal Savage probably loves this world that he's in.
Yeah.
So also worth mentioning, it does say at the start specifically, this is 6 months after the events of
the War of Three Kingdoms.
Which I did find a little bit weird looking back, because now knowing with hindsight that the world itself is colorless, when they're on the boat, he talks about, this place used to, these seas used to be blue. Killer Frost, before my time. Like the timeline doesn't seem to quite add up with that.
I assume that in this part of the world, which I'm going to assume is the north part of the world for obvious reasons, is where the colors all went. That's the only thing I can assume.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be something to do with the rot or something, greed, whatever, that has formed this world. because even Deathstroke seems he's not like he's fine with the Viking way, but he does not seem to like when they beat the first army and then Vandal Savage has his guys fire arrows on him anyways, even though they've surrendered. Right, that doesn't seem to sit well with Deathstroke.
Yeah.
So it seems like this is a much more brutal part of the world where something's gone wrong.
Sorry, what's their dating system? Because it says it's 6 months after the War of the Three Kingdoms, but before that it says the Battle of Spyhel, 21 AW. What's AW after?
I don't know.
After
Waller.
Ooh.
Yeah, because they mention later on when they're in the temple that it had been 21 years since like the color, so it's whatever that AW is that they're dating from the color went. But
yeah,
I'm just a bit clearly there's color elsewhere in the world. If the Battle of Three Kingdoms was only 6 months ago,
after Wayne,
you nailed it.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it could be they were the rulers until the Kryptonians showed up, right?
I don't know.
And then.
I also it was such a nice surprise at the end, not just because of the gimmick of having this one character in color, and there's probably going to be more color as he affects things in the book going forward, but it was also just that I never expected Swamp Thing in any form to show up, because it's not what I associate with Deathstroke. Like, I was expecting this, like, whoever he was the target was, I was expecting to be someone we were going to recognize, but they hit me with a bit of a curveball here, because I was thinking, oh, it'll be like Terra or something. So someone that I associate with Deathstroke or another villain.
100% thought that was going to be Terra until they said Alec, and then I got very confused because I wasn't expecting it to be a kid.
Yeah, that was
or if it was a kid, you were expecting one of Deathstrokes, right?
Right, I'm expecting it to be literally any of them, Yeah. Which I wonder if this is how we get Rose in some form because of her name, right? They tend to be a little bit more literal in the Dark Knights era.
That makes sense.
So,
very good. Yeah. No, I liked it a lot. I mean, I might have even liked it more than the main book. And I like the main book a lot. Tom Taylor's obviously great, but like, I think this story, like, I was just more engrossed in it from start to finish in a way that I think it just captured me a bit quicker.
This might sound weird, but and because he's not typically a comic book writer, Christoph, but maybe that's the benefit of getting a fantasy writer in to do this style of story. This is kind of his bread and butter, as opposed to like Taylor. He's a very good comic book writer. Obviously, he can do. He's versatile, but this kind of epic fantasy style stuff isn't necessarily his strongest suit.
Yeah.
So bringing it out to someone else might have been a really smart choice.
Yeah, maybe.
Good choice.
Very, very interesting. All the same, really liked the main story. Which is not to suggest that I didn't like the backup, which we're getting to here.
Yeah. Real quick. All the Viking stuff reminded me of Northlanders, which was a Vertigo book.
Oh sure.
That's all these Viking stories. Yeah, and he even Deathstroke, his whole design reminds me of I forget the name, but it's set in the Faroe Islands, the first story.
Yes.
In Northlanders. Very similar. So
yeah,
if you like this and you want more, check that out.
I will say that when I went to read this, I didn't know, or at least had forgotten, that Federici had anything to do with it. So when I turned the page to that backup, I went, wait a minute.
That's such a pleasant surprise, right?
What's going on here now? This looks like Federici. And obviously there's this battle scene, and it's like the Kents fighting alongside Jim Gordon and Amanda Waller. What a weird combination of people that is. But it's like, so it's setting up some various things here. And we even get Wildcats, like the commander of the platoon or whatever. It's doing a lot of interesting stuff, and the art's all great. These characters out in the rain.
Found the name. It was in the backup.
There you go. What is it?
When it says you're the Cleavers of Rothfuss, Patrick Rothfuss. So there's the Name of the Wind books that people are waiting on that third book about as long as they've been waiting on the next Game of Thrones book.
So then that would make a lot more sense that it came from Taylor because he set up Hobbs, right? Yes. Woods. So there you go.
Yeah. So
I knew it was in here somewhere.
The plot of this, during the sort of the aftermath of this battle, we find out that the Kents are really well respected as heroes in the army, and they don't, obviously they're good people. They don't just relish in death and glory. They're a lot more like kind and whatnot. But everyone kind of looks up to them as being these heroes. But the platoon's given this job of going to the beach to go to the shore, just in case, because they're hearing that there's like a play for power and the seas and the under. And I'm like, oh, we're doing Aquaman stuff in the backup, and sure enough, right, we cut to I don't know if it's technically Atlantis, but like
no,
it's called Lemuria.
So Lemuria in mythology, Lemuria was the Atlantis of the Pacific, right? There's a lot of weird mystical kind of conspiracy theory stuff set around Lemuria. So the fact that it's Lemuria and not Atlantis, I think, is a big point too.
Okay, so, yeah, fair enough. But as soon as it went to the underwater, I'm like, oh yeah, Federici on Aquaman.
It's been so long.
I'm remembering this.
Look at that giant squid behind there.
I'm remembering
that last page that carried the fantasy redesign from Federici. Yeah.
Yeah, because basically what this does is it sets up that Alana, who, for anyone who doesn't remember that name, I don't really blame you, but it's this Aquaman's mother, has fled from this city, and whoever's ruling it is sending out, like, you know, soldiers after her. And basically when he's told, hey, like the surface dwellers, the Waynes and their army are like guarding the shore, he's like, I don't care about the Waynes, I don't care about them coming, they can't breathe in our waters, just kill whoever you want, betray the whatever truces we've got going, and then this is all like POV kind of from his perspective, so you don't see who it is, and then the final page shows you and reveals that this is Black Manta, and he is ruling
Emperor Manta.
Emperor Manta, to be precise. Yes. Great reveal, and I'm like, okay, I love the main story, and then you're giving me Federici like underwater stuff.
As well, this backup, okay, let's assume in good faith that it's all going to be set in this time period. This feels like it's setting a lot of ground for the sequel that Taylor was teasing. I mean, like, because that would line up to have Aquaman at that time period then.
Yeah, given the context of like the ending of the first story, where the conflict between the Amazons, the Waynes, and whoever, it kind of like resolved, and the Lightning Clan.
Yeah. Because it ended up being the White Martians, right? And they would all be played against each other. Now, here's an outside force.
Yeah, this makes sense. I'm saying that, like this underwater force with Black Manta as the leader. And who knows, maybe even like some of the Viking part of the world will also get involved in some way. Like, there's a lot, because I mean, we did have a Kraken in that first story, so it's not out of the world that some of these things might connect down the line.
For sure.
So, very interesting, very interesting. At the very least, I could see young Alec Holland ending up in like a sequel down the line in the main story.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
So
making his way down to wherever.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that loved this book. I thought Matt would be like probably on my side. I did think it might have been a bit too.
I'm shocked that Pete likes it so much, but
yeah, me too.
You know.
Good art, well paced. It didn't like lay on too thick the terminologies or whatever. It was just enough that made sense. It wasn't relishing in the details that usually just bore the shit out of me. So and then on top of that, the backup was like interesting as well, was setting up the Kents and this underwater stuff, and you know, Black Manta and all that. Like, I'm like, oh, you get plus Federici art. Like, honestly, like I didn't really think I needed any more Dark Knights of Steel, but this issue was like, hey, there's stuff left in the tank. If anything, maybe it might even get more interesting now, because okay, we've done the remix of all the main characters in the DCU, which every Elseworld does. Like, you know, and I love to see Stephen more than Dark Knights of Steel, and obviously the first half of DC versus Vampires was pretty good and whatever. But they all have a kind of a similar thing where it's like, okay, how is this character going to be in this context of this world? Same with the Jurassic League. It's like, okay, this is how this character works in this version of the DCU.
The rules are set really early from the start, and they don't, they don't need to get convoluted.
Once you get past that, you get to tell just new stories.
Yes. Yes.
Which is what this is doing. And it's why we kind of loved Unkillables, right?
Yeah, Unkillables was the best part of Deceased.
And it's playing with stuff that's from fantasy lore, right? We have the evil king, right, in Vandal Savage with his, Weather Witch, with Killer Frost. These are all tight, deep in. It's almost very Game of Thronesy.
It would be so funny though if the spin-off in the middle is the best part of the series again.
Except this time it's not written by Taylor, right? So that
would make it like an interesting exception.
Yeah. But I also really like the backup though, which is Taylor
as well. Yeah.
So
I'd say I prefer the main story, but also that might just be because there's more of it, right? There's a lot more meat in that main story by nature of its page count.
Yeah, just really, really interesting direction to take this in. Excited to see where they go with it. So
I'm so glad. Like, I agree that like I probably like Dark Knights of Steel the best out of us because it kind of hit like a lot of the things I like.
I liked it well enough, but
yeah. But also by the end, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I need more.
Yeah.
But then this comes along and it's
but
like,
I remember
I did need more.
The solicit, and you're like a Viking Deathstroke. I'm in.
Yeah.
Here's my money.
I'm a sucker for it. What do you want? But I was right to be a sucker for it because it's great.
Mm-hmm. And when he went into that Kraken, I was like, oh, he's coming out the hard way. And then he does, and it did not disappoint. Like, again, I could hear Mon Amarth in my head as I'm reading this. So,
yeah. Honestly, kind of the surprise of the week for me, this issue. So, Matt, what are you giving Dark Knights of Steel Allwinter issue 1?
8.5.
Yes. Well, I suppose winter already came in this fantasy story.
Yes. Winter is not coming. Winter is here, and it is terrible.
That's why there's no color. It's all winter.
Yes.
That's what AW stands for.
I almost
after winter.
Just all, or it is just all winter. Like,
all winter. Yeah. It's been that many years since this eternal winter began.
Yeah, maybe.
I could see that. Interesting. Yeah, issue 3 is going to end with a character saying summer is coming, just to drive it home. Connor, what are you rating this?
My customary one time of every episode where I go higher than Matt, I'll give it the 9.
Yeah.
I'm tempted. I'm going to go 9 as well. I think this is the rare combination of like, because normally if I don't like the backup that much, I won't even just consider it in the rating. But the fact that I also really like the backup as well as the main story being a surprise is like just a win-win.
And art in both main and backup is fantastic.
Yes. Yes.
Doesn't always happen.
Taylor is starting to veer into that Tom King territory of he has something on someone because he's starting to just get good artists on things by and large. So, yeah, very curious.